CSH presents George Braddock in a series we call We Can Do Better. This is part 4, assessing the environment and the 6 most common modifications that George regularly performed on housing to adapt to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Experience in that world, but also really appreciate the fact that, families that are trying to keep it together have kids with significant autism spectrum disorder, and they're, kind of, in a way, sort of victims of the system. And the question about the physical environment, it doesn't come up. So we wrote a book called Making Homes at Work, and this is a program in the book that gives families a way to start thinking about how they can make modifications, how they can assess their own environment and make some determinations, and then sometimes share that with caseworkers and maybe even get some budgeting to help deal with it. So the first thing you need to look at is, what is the biggest problem that moms face every day? And if I don't go to that first, if I let moms break down, it all falls apart. It all falls apart. 75% of the people with developmental disability are still living at home. They're still living at home. And those parents are providing the cheapest per hour services on the planet. Right? So if mom is stressed out, do you think Colin's not picking up on that? When you're impatient, back to the receiving end of care, there's nobody more in tune to that than people with autism. They can read you across the room if you're having a bad day, and they'll react to it. So what's happening to mom? How many holes are in the wall? How many different loads of towels and laundry does she have to do? How do we address the greatest stressor? Because if I can bring the stress down in the house, everybody's going to do better. Then involve the individual. Look at the behaviors. What are you trying to learn? What are they trying to say? And what's going on? Involve them in the process. Look at your house. What isn't working? Do you have Daryl? Daryl was a porpoise, his dad told me. Yeah, Daryl's a porpoise. And I said, well, why do you say that? He said, well, because, first of all, he's an absolute fish in the water. And then whenever it's time to take a bath, he gets in the tub shower combination, and he somehow manages to stand on that lip of the tub that's about that big at the end of the tub. And with the water running in the tub, puts his hands down to his sides and whoosh, down into the tub. Well, that whoosh down into the tub has him, connecting with the end of the tub with his feet, full force. So how many times do you think you can do that before you kick the bottom out of that tub? Not that many. And so that was the problem. He was a porpoise. And he broke the tub. That's actually what's going on right here. You can barely see it, but that was the end result of a lot of porpoising in the tub.
Is that a fiberglass or cast iron?
It was fiberglass tub. Yeah.
So wasn't it a cast iron tub?
That's what we did. There you go. You can go to work for me. But you had to recognize the problem, and you had to kind of figure it out, because you also loved the tub, so you could say, well, take the tub out. Well, now, wait a minute. To be honest, I've actually gone back in and put tubs back in houses that we took them out before, because oftentimes, particularly for women, when they get older, being able to get fully in the water, it really matters. It really makes a big difference. So that's like, don't have the immediate default, take the tub out. Because then, 10 years later, I'm putting it back. So, think about, can we have bathrooms where you have both? Could you have a roll-in shower at one end of the tub and maintain the tub too? Not impossible. So then you're going to hear a little bit about the 6 most common modifications, things that we do again and again in these projects. Look at them and see how they might deal with your particular specific problem. When Daryl puts his head through the wall, what do you do about that? And then make an action plan. So these are the things that we first look at in terms of our assessment of the environment. What are the obvious things that are hazards? Do you have glass that's getting broken in the wall? Do you have pointy outside areas like that? Is it hard to take care of it? Do you have carpet that smells really bad? Do you have plexiglass over top of the windows? Do you have sections of the house that are locked off so that your child can't get there? So what's going on? Install finishes that are easy and durable, easy to take care of. Anticipate that things are going to get used unconventionally, because they're not going to get used the way people normally use them. Anticipate water play. I would say that that's my default. If I'm working with a person with autism spectrum disorder, I'm saying to myself, they got to get with the water somehow. Sometimes it's like Sue Rubin with spoons going underneath of the water. With Colin, it's having that water run on him all the time. With Tommy, it's various ways of controlling the water. It's like water, 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 water. But you think about it, there's a whole lot going on with water. It's got texture. You can control it. It's got temperature. You can control it. You can pour it over things. It's got light going on. I mean, like, water's cool.
Yeah.
Water's cool. And people with autism, they like it. And so make it available. Doors are a problem. Doors that get slammed. My daughter slams doors, it happens. But, there are things we can do about that. Use fiberglass doors that are lightweight, address problem doors, and select appropriate finishes. And sometimes, like, simple things like, don't make holes in the floor in a bathroom. Put their heating register up on the wall so the water doesn't run down the register. So the most common problem we run into is bathrooms. Back to that basic thing, you got to get in the bed, you got to get in the door, you got to get on the toilet. And so the essential bathroom. People say, well, George, you can only get away with one thing in a project. And I'll say, put in a floor drain. Put in a floor drain. Because, if you're going to encourage people and support people to have interaction with water, it's going to end up on the floor. And if you don't deal with it on the floor, you're either mopping it up with towels, sucking it up with the shop vac, right? Or not letting them in the bathroom. And so you got to figure out a way. Water, I think John said it well, water is the enemy in a house. Where are most of the problems? They're at the kitchen sink, they're in the bathroom, they're in the laundry, they're in places where water and wood come together. They don't actually get along all that well. Importance of natural ventilation and light, secondary heat source, and don't make holes in the floor. So in many ways, I think that this is the greatest contribution that we've made to the, what do they talk? They talk about the body of information in a particular area. So this is called the walking loop. So a lot of people, again, with autism, they're experiencing the world very physically. There's a lot going on vestibularly for them, big muscle movement. They're pacing, walking, rocking. They get a little bit anxious, and so they're like in motion a lot. So then you take them, you put them in the house. And what are you going to do? You're just going to walk around the room? Well, what if you made some pathways in the house? What if you made some trails in the house, some ways for people to move through the house? We did a project here in Skokie, and we have a situation where you go down one flight of stairs, go across the basement on the bottom floor, and then go up another flight of stairs on the other side. So you had this loop. So they're walking the loop. And it gives me a chance to either engage or not engage. It has a way to help me work out this anxiety that sometimes builds up, and then I get an explosion. I get a tantrum. I've set you off. I'm giving you something you don't want. I've asked you to do something, I made a demand, and you come unglued. And I'm wondering, what was that all about? Well, it's just all this energy and all this tension built up in you. Can we walk some of that off? Can I go by and decide whether I want to engage with that guest or not? Maybe not. So it gives me a lot of control over social interaction. It allows me to work things out through my body. And the older houses really had those pathways. Oops. I just figured out pretty good till just now. So where you have interconnecting rooms. So a lot of the older craftsman style houses had that capacity where you could walk through a hallway, through a series of rooms, dining room, kitchen, sitting room, living room space. So it's just thinking, if you're remodeling, how can you create these pathways? How can you create walking spaces for people? Safe places that are predictable. We call this places of control, levels of freedom. So it's like if I'm just all about being on you, it's like Ronnie's dad constantly being at his elbow. You don't have a chance to ever live free. Well, how do you ever learn to use freedom appropriately if you never have any of it? It's not like magic. You know how to be free. Not like magic. You know how to have choices. If you don't have any choices, you don't know how to do it necessarily, and you don't necessarily know how to be free. Little Noah Hood. What he was interested in was getting across the road to the playground. That's what he knew, and he didn't know that cars would run him over on the way. He didn't have any safety awareness of that at all. So did it matter that Noah opened his bedroom window a little bit? No. Mattered a lot if he opened the window the whole way. So for me to be able to know that, pretty good. Noah gets to the front yard. We put a system up there that a little speaker comes on, a little water fountain turns on, and Noah goes over there, blows that off, and he heads for the front gate. He gets within 4 feet of the front gate, and the water sprinkler system comes on. So now in order to go out the gate, he's going to have to get wet. He doesn't necessarily want to get wet and go out the door. In the meantime, once he's left the porch, then an alarm goes off, and Mom knows. The window goes open full way at 2 o'clock in the morning, and Mom knows. And she's meeting Noah at that place. So I want the Noah to have as much freedom as he can, but then, when he gets right out here to the street, I got to be able to stop him at the street. I have to be able to do that. It's like, I think that to allow someone to get hurt, to do damage to themselves, because it's their right to do that, I think that's abuse. I think there's a balance in there. I think sharing control, and it takes judgment. It does. Sometimes you can't get judgment for $10 an hour. Sometimes you get the guy that can't make it at flipping burgers. So he's working, taking care of your sons and daughters for $10 an hour. And he's not necessarily going to do the sophisticated thinking that might suggest. Connect to people visibly. Be able to see what's going on in the house. It's back to that, how does Mom know what George was doing in the bedroom? Now, this is something that we've had really good luck with. So a number of years ago, I did a project for a little guy named Rasul. Rasul had Prader-Willi. And so, but Prader-Willi is a disability that has you feeling like you're starving all the time. I mean, literally, people with Prader-Willi will eat until they die. They'll eat that much. It's terrible. And it's like one of the worst out there, that sense of, yourself, you're starving. And so, of course, what does he want to do? He wants to get to food. He wants to get to the kitchen. And so it's all about how do we keep that from happening. So his dad would lock Rasul in his bedroom at night. And then he went into his closet, the master closet, which was a common wall with Rasul's bedroom, and he cut a hole through the closet. So if Rasul wanted to go to the kitchen, he had to go through the hole in Dad's closet and walk right by where Dad was sleeping. And then Dad would wake up and redirect or go and give him a treat that was the appropriate thing, give him an apple, instead of taking everything out of the kitchen and eating everything we could find. So we call that the gatekeeper spot. We've actually used that a lot, where you've got a suite that Ronnie or Rasul has control of, and if he wants to go to the main body of the house, he has to go through his parents' bedroom to do it. And, it's like that whole idea of helping people understand the boundaries, being aware, being present, and supporting them. Hopefully it doesn't have to always be a locked door. Make it easy for staff to do the right thing. One of the theme songs I have a lot. Make it easy to clean the house. Walk in a house, you judge it by how it smells. So you got to have surfaces that aren't absorbing smells. You got to have easy ways to take care of them. You want mop sinks. Mop sinks are really great if you're dealing with feces or any kind of peri-care. How do you deal with the bad smells of the house? That notion of negative air pressures, which is what we did for Khalid because of his handling of feces. Clutter will migrate and it will accumulate. Like if you let something happen in the corner and it piles up there, pretty soon it's like everywhere. So figuring out ways that there are places for things to go and they're stored there and it's easy to do that and it's predictable, it really supports people having more control of their lives.